Good morning. We are going live with Suzanne from the OHM Center right here in New York City. Excited to chat with a local New York City studio on the Upper West Side, right here in New York. So hopefully we'll have Suzanne join us and we'll have a little chat with her. You know, New York City during the pandemic was tough here, and Suzanne opened her space in 2019. So excited to see you. Yes, Suzanne, I see you. Okay, I'm gonna add you in, and I'm gonna send you an invite. Started. All right, so Suzanne's gonna accept my IG Live invite. I
All
see
right.
you.
Can
We
you hear
did
me?
it. I see you. I hear you. We did it.
Okay, thank you. Sorry about that. I'm in the age that doesn't use Instagram, and I've never done an Instagram live, so I apologize.
And you know, sometimes Instagram just does, it's not on the mood,
Okay.
you know, so we never know.
Okay. All right.
Thank you for joining us. Can you introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Suzanne Hill. I'm a licensed acupuncturist for about 23 years, and I've taught meditation for a little longer than that. And I used to teach all around the city. I borrowed people's spaces, and then I taught out of my home because I wanted to do it weekly, and it was just more convenient to use my own space because I did all my prayers and meditations in my own space, so the energy was there. The hardest thing about borrowing people's studios, whether it's yoga or taekwondo, is I have to get the energy up, and I would have to go in and pray and meditate for like an hour and a half before the class. And that was really hard. So I just started doing it out of my home, and then I could do it weekly. It was easier.
Yeah.
I did that for like 6 years. And then when I got up to 3 classes, I needed to get it out of my home. So I looked around and I found this space, which is actually on First Avenue,
Yeah.
between 62nd and 63rd. And I didn't think that I wanted to be on a main street because I thought it would be too loud. But the space happens to be configured that we have a front area and then a hallway and then a back area. I put in $40,000 worth of soundproofing, so it's very quiet. And we have a nice little private backyard. So you look out onto a nice little backyard. And when you walk back there and you take a class there, it's like being in a different world.
Wow.
So, yeah.
And especially, you know, being in New York City, you know, and it's interesting that you mentioned soundproofing because New York City is very loud, you know. And so the fact that we have to do these, I'm like, can you come to my house and put in the soundproofing?
And you hear the sound here because I'm in the front room, so I don't know if you hear trucks and stuff.
I only hear my trucks,
Okay.
quite honestly. So
Okay.
it's hard to know where the sound is coming from. Are you from New York City originally?
I grew up in New Jersey, but I moved to the city when I was 22. So
yeah. So you're practically native at this point.
Practically native, yes.
So when you opened that new space, so your space that you've been, I was reading online, it's been since 2019, is that correct?
Yeah, we opened October 19, about 5.5 months before the pandemic.
I mean, what was that like?
It was good because when I was looking for the space, I became a little anxious because a couple of spaces fell through.
Yeah.
And a friend of mine said, "Why are you so anxious?" And I said, "Because it's either now or in 5 years." And he said, "Why?" I said, "I don't know. I just have that feeling." And then after the pandemic happened, we were talking. He's like, "I completely forgot I had said that." And he's like, "Oh, now we know why it's 5 years."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. So when you walked into the space that you're in, I mean, you mentioned the energy has to be right. Did you automatically feel, okay, now I understand why the other ones didn't work out?
Yes.
This is the space. Yeah.
I knew that I had to be on a main street.
Yeah.
Because meditation and sound baths, I mean, now sound baths are more popular, but meditation is not that well known. If it's a side street, you'd hardly see it. Now, so many people have told us that they come in, they've walked by 70, 100 times. They finally decide to come in, and we wouldn't have that visibility without being on a main street.
Yeah.
So,
and that's New York City, right? I mean, that's your real estate is your advertising.
Yeah, that's why you pay a lot.
Yeah. Are you still practicing acupuncture as well?
Yes. I built the business model on there being practitioner treatments because the classes alone don't sustain a place. And in fact, that's the only reason why I was able to stay open, because after I came back from lockdown, I treated a few patients, thought I'd go back to the country, and I ended up staying. And the first year and a half, it was I sustained this all pretty much through my acupuncture practice. Because there were only because of the 6 feet rule,
Right.
we could only have 5 people in a class. That was maximum, and then only like 2 or 3 people ever came.
Right.
And some people thought it was ridiculous. Some of my friends were concerned that I kept it open with 2 or 3 people in a class. But I said, you have to keep the energy going. And as the energy going, like when things start to open up, then we're well positioned. But I do feel lucky about that. But the truth is, I don't pay myself for the work I do at home. I teach and I run the place, but I don't pay myself. And because I'm able to do that, we're able to stay open. If I didn't have my work as an acupuncturist, I couldn't do it. So
and I feel
it all
like
works out.
Yeah, and I feel like that's true of most small businesses, right? We never pay ourselves because we want to keep, I mean, it's
Well,
not
you're in
really-
service.
You're right. Exactly. And so that's how we keep, I work a full-time job in addition to creating the magazine because magazines don't pay the rent, but I love doing it and it's important for me to create this work. So I get it. I always want to say I love acupuncture for someone that's never tried it. And, a lot of people always think initially, oh, needles, I'm scared. How would you describe an acupuncture experience to that person?
Well, the thing is, most people think of needles that hurt because it's a hypodermic needle. And that, like, if you look at the end of the hypodermic needle, there's a hole because fluid has to get in or out. Right. But in acupuncture is what needles called a filiform needle. So it's just, there's no hole. So it's much, much thinner and it doesn't hurt. And of course, I needle differently based on the person because some people, like children, or people who are highly, highly empathic, then I only have to tap the needle into the surface and that's enough for the energy to move. For other people who are denser or really have deep muscular issues, then I have to go into the needle and release. And so that's different. And that's a whole different experience because when you go into the muscle release, a trigger point is called, like a point of tightness. It contracts and then releases. And then it's an odd feeling, but it releases lactic acid. And then people after a treatment feel like they just worked out for, a couple hours.
Yeah.
But the actual, people have a different range of what their pain is like. And I'd say an acupuncture needle isn't pain. It's like an interesting sensation.
Yeah.
But I'm, I don't do things like ears or the bottom of the feet or something like on a first couple of visits because it's too much.
I had that bottom of the feet and I was like, oh,
yeah,
that was a surprise.
Yeah,
Do you do a lot of meditation?
I'm sorry?
No, we keep on.
I was saying my youngest patient that I've had is like 3 years old. So, it can do it. So a lot of the kids, I generally, depending on their fear factor or their sensitivity, usually by 7 or 8, I can start regularly needling them.
Yeah. What would be the most common thing that people want to treat acupuncture for? I mean, I found that it can pretty much treat everything, but what do you find people usually tend to go to first for acupuncture?
Well, people generally for pain, for headaches, for anxiety, sleep, allergies. But
really?
Because in practice, so yeah, allergies are very easy to treat with acupuncture of all kind, including like cat and dog allergies. Yeah. But I've been in practice so long, I try to push the pain people like to my junior partners, and I focus on like very internal medical issues. So, colitis, Crohn's, digestive, female issues, cancer, autoimmune, that kind of thing. Yeah.
Right. How you deal with so many different energy modalities. So you have acupuncture, and then you do sound healing, and then I saw you have Reiki as well offered at your space. How do you sort of determine if someone comes in and says, I'm feeling anxious or I'm feeling this? How would you guide them towards a specific modality?
Generally, they know what they want. They want to try it, and then they see. But people who are it's really comes down to, I don't want to sound nuts, but it sounds like it comes back to like lineage training. So if in a past life they've had a lot of energy training, then they'll go right to energy work, right? If they haven't, or if they've had been exposure to acupuncture before, or prior acupuncturist,
Right.
like one of my first patients ended up becoming an acupuncturist, and then my intern, so it's a lot more than just what's happening right now. But all people who are denser, they don't tend to like energy at work as much. When I say denser, it's not a criticism. It's just that their energy is more on the earthly plane. They don't like Reiki or things like that, because they lie there and they're like, oh, I don't know, I just lay there.
Right.
I don't feel like there are other people
Yeah.
who are very empathic and sensitive. They walk in, they're like, oh, they don't necessarily want to be touched or poked or prodded. So
Interesting. And how do you determine, like, how would you determine if someone has denser energy? Like, when you meet them, could you tell, or would you have to?
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
And does it have to be in person, or could it be like a Zoom consultation you do?
Oh, no, I do a lot of Zoom. Yeah, I can read the energy over the phone.
That's
I don't even
so
have to
cool.
see them. It's better if I see them, but I can just read over the phone. Because you just lock into their energy, and then you can feel what's up.
I love that. I'm thinking, because I've had horrific allergies, and for some reason it never occurred to me. I always equate going to acupuncture with pain, but you're right. Yeah. I should just for allergies. I should have just gone right away.
Yeah, people shouldn't suffer from allergies. Yeah,
it's true. It's true. What do you find is the most popular offering from your space? Is it the sound bath? Is it?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Why do you think that is?
One is, we have what's called, I distinguish between passive and active, sessions, and sound baths are pretty passive. You lie down and you just receive. Yeah. Right? Reiki is passive. We have group Reiki. You can lie down, you just receive. Right. Meditation, you have to sit up and do chanting classes. You actually have to do right after lockdown. Nobody wanted to do anything but lie down. Right. And so when I first opened this space, I pretty much paid the rent with sound baths. I had 15 sound baths going, and I did them all myself. Wow. And I really didn't realize I opened a sound bath studio. Nobody came to meditation, maybe one or two people. So I started creating like mini meditation and sound bath, mini mantra chanting and sound bath. Yeah. And people love that. But then after lockdown, they didn't want to do that. So I just, for a year and a half, we just had people lie down. And now one of our most popular class, I do a class that's called Gentle Hypnosis and Sound Healing. But I actually do chanting, but I don't put it in the class description, because I know if I put it in the class description, people won't come. But when they come, I go, okay, we're going to do 15 minutes of chanting. Right. And they love it, because when you chant in a group, it's powerful. Mm. And then the chanting clears the chakras. And then when they lie down, they go right into the guided visualization hypnosis very easily, and then they have a better sound bath. So even though, and I play the gong, and I play the singing bowl, so even though it's only half an hour as opposed to an hour of playing, the experience is much deeper. Wow. Yeah. And
it makes sense to me. I mean, I feel like, especially coming out of lockdown, we were so exhausted, spiritually, mentally, and physically as well. It makes sense that people were just, heal me, I want to lay down and receive that good energy. Do you find, has it changed at all in the last, because we're pretty fully open now, and people seem to have sort of moved on. Do you find that everything is still kind of the same for you? Are you up to full capacity now?
Well, what I appreciated about lockdown was that it forced me to go virtual, like everybody. And then when we went virtual, then people joined in for the meditation and mantra chanting. Whereas before I couldn't get them to do it, then they came. And then because a lot of people didn't leave their home very much, I would run 3 to 5 classes every day, except maybe 2 on Sunday. And people came, a lot of people came to every day. Some people came to every class every day. And then at the end of 3 months, I thought that whole community would vanish. But then what people said is, after doing spiritual practice every day, they couldn't imagine what it was like to not do it every day. And so they had a difference. So then when they look back to, I used to go once a month or once a week, that's such a difference to once a day now, that most of I have a big group of people that come, every day. And then we record all the classes on Zoom. So if anybody misses a class, we send them the recording, but it's a really strong class. And then because of the group energy, it's still sustainable on Zoom, then it's very easy for people to step into meditation because that field is there. And then as, in my classes, I always do wisdom training. So my meditation classes are 45 minutes. I do 25 minutes of wisdom training, 20 minutes of meditation. And so over 3 years, we've gone through a lot of things. We went through, the Patanjali Yoga Sutras. We went through the Guru Gita. We went through the Bhagavad Gita. We went through like a lot of spiritual texts, as well as, I would pick a topic for the week and it'd be like, okay, this week will be faith, and this week will be self-confidence, and this will be betrayal or forgiveness, something like that. So people can go deeper and deeper and deeper into it. And so after 3 years, some people have only been like 6 months, but people have a very good, solid foundation in their wisdom training and spiritual practice.
Wow.
And, people have asked me, well, why don't you do a meditation teacher training? I you know what? I don't know. I'm just not hardwired to charge people a ton of money for like a kind of training. I said, like, the best training is just to come in and then do it, because I find in those teacher trainings, it's not true for everybody, but a lot of people, it's like the class is the training. So however often the class is what the training is. So it's better for them to come every day.
Yeah.
Particularly being a meditation teacher, it's not just about what you talk about. Like, you have to hold a field energetically for people to step into, which is why a lot of people don't, like if the teacher has a nice, they can guide you through this and that, but they can't lift the energy, then you have a nice experience, but it's very different than when you have a meditative experience where you can step into a field and you can feel it.
It's so funny because you talk so much about energy, and I love it. It's something that fascinates me. I did a teacher training for yoga many years ago, and one of the reasons I decided it wasn't a good fit for me to be a teacher was because I couldn't receive energy back. I couldn't hold space in a way that wasn't draining for me. And I feel like that's a skill that it can be taught, right? I mean, you can teach another person how to do that.
Right. Well, what happens, the reason that is because you actually have to do enough practice to fill your energy. Right. So most people coming to a teacher training, they're still on the filling. So they don't have enough to channel back. Right. The only way you're full enough is if you have your own practice outside of your teaching and learning, so that little by little, this is why people, people like, well, people come in, they're like, oh, I want to teach Reiki at your place. How long have you been doing it? A year. Right. I'm like, it's not long enough. Well, why not? I have all the, symbols. Right. It's not that you can't hold the energy enough. Yeah. And then a lot of people don't even have their own practice. Yeah. Right. They don't have a meditation practice, and they say, well, I don't need one. Well, it's hard. It's hard if you're going to be draining energy if you don't have one. And the truth is, look, meditation, it's part of a spiritual path. It's not just, I know nowadays people call it like, oh, brain waves and mind relaxation, but it's actually a spiritual practice because you're connecting to the love, your yoga love, right? Love inside of you. And you're learning how to profoundly love and accept yourself, because every judgment you have about yourself or someone else takes away the love. Every judgment you have, every negative opinion, every attachment to your opinion to be more right or smarter or better than anyone else, which is what a lot we're taught in school, right? It disconnects you from the divine, which is love. So, so this takes a lot of time to learn how to do. We can understand it theoretically, but then in practice, somebody, slams the door accidentally on your, it doesn't say sorry, or is mean to you, or says something, behind your back, all of these things, until you're impervious to them, it's harder to hold the energy.
Yeah. And I always wonder sort of, and this is like a deeper question for a longer conversation, but why is it not our natural state to just be in that? Where does it come from, this sort of resistance and this feeling of lack? I find so much, not just in myself, but in other people as well. I mean, you would think we're born and it's in us and we feel good, like, and then all of a sudden something happens and we sort of shift. Like, what's up with that?
Well, I think it's a couple of things. Number one, in Hinduism, you call it samskaras, right? Impressions from the past life that you bring in. you had trauma in the past life, you
Right.
bring it in. If you have trauma in your early life, you bring it in. And
Right.
all of us, my belief system, you're incarnated here to learn have many, many different experiences. So you're not only going to have good things happen, because the negative things make you grow and learn about yourself. So
Yes.
obstacles are put purposely on our path so that we can
Right.
overcome them and therefore grow. But I do believe that a lot of it is acculturated, or I would say at least some of it's acculturated in the way that we raise our children, to be competitive, to be better than, to be fear-based.
Right.
You have to do so well in school because then you have to go to college, because then you have to get a job. And, this is a line that a lot of people feel, but that's for so few people that's the true path, So, and I think people are afraid. Parents are afraid. I want my kid to have a roof over their head. I want them to be, sustainable. I want them to be a nice person. And so it's all this fear versus just, like your life doesn't have to look a certain way. Like if you enjoy different experiences, if you like something, do more of it. If you don't like it, do less of it, and people don't feel the freedom to do that. They're afraid to love. I love music, but my parents want me to go into finance. I love this person, but they're Muslim and I'm Jewish, So from my perspective, being able to read the energy of the soul, like sometimes you're thrust into those positions so that you grow beyond it. Yeah. Right. Like some people, I can't have my own baby, so I have to adopt. Right. No, this lifetime you were meant to, so that you understand that someone who is not your blood is also your tribe, that thing. But I'm not saying that any of this stuff is easy from a human perspective, but as you go through each of these things, you do grow in your capacity to love and accept all beings, right? Yeah. Which is the, quote unquote goal, if there is a goal. Right. But, I always say to my students, though, like, be honest with yourself with where you are, because if you're supposed to forgive someone and you're not there, like, then you have to wait until you're there. Yeah. You have to hit your own pain point.
And patience with ourselves, right? So not only patience with those around us, but with our own sort of timeline, Thank you.
The way I end most of my classes, though, they're lying down, I have people put their hands on their heart and I say, repeat after me and don't feel embarrassed and say it out loud, right? Yeah. It's, I absolutely, fully and completely love and accept myself through and through, no exceptions. I remember that I am light, I am love, and I am divine. And then just give people a moment to take it in, and like, that's your homework. Until you can say that with no pushback, right? Yeah. Yeah. It's heartbreaking when you see, especially like I look at my friends too, and I had a friend that was going through a very tumultuous time, and she was doubting herself so much and she couldn't see her own amazingness. And I looked at her and I was so shocked. I'm like, you're amazing. Like, how can you not see this right now? And it's funny to see it from that perspective, and she was having her moment. She was going through her thing, but like, also thank goodness we have our community around us and our teachers to remind us of that when we're feeling depleted or not connected to our amazingness, because we needed it. Like, she's going through her thing right now, and our community of friends are just like, you're great, and we'll wait for you to remember that. Well, listen, I'm very close with my older brother, and he's very good at championing people. So when when I'm down, I'll call him up and go, okay, tell me why I'm doing this. Tell me. And he'll go, you're this and you're that, and he'll like literally just for 2 minutes just tell me all the good things. Okay, thank you. But I think that's what we all need to do for each other. And I mean, I know I call this a meditation center. It's just an easy moniker, but it's really a place for people to step in and learn how to love themselves, and then therefore love their lives. So I love it. I love it. Do you still have time for your own? You're very busy. You're teaching all these classes. You have a big community. You're holding space. Do you still find time for your own practice? Has it changed since you've become a small business owner? Yeah, no, absolutely. I do. Yeah. Like I walk to work or I scooter to work. I'm always doing mantra when I'm going to work. I'm doing my dishes. I'm doing my shower. I mean, I don't know. Like, I'm always doing, for me, mantra. And then the harder time is to sit and actually meditate. Yes. But I can get into a state really quickly. So even if I do 5 minutes, I can go very deep. And also when I'm treating patients, I'm also doing mantra. I mean, they don't know it, but it's in my head. Right. So you get to a point where you're more in the state than not in the state.
Right.
But of course I have my moments.
Yeah.
I get overtired.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and I also have friends who are spiritual. Like I have a friend who's a Swami upstate. I'm actually going to go visit him, in a month, and I take my retreat too.
Yeah.
Like you have to.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And it's so important I find that I work better when I make sure it's scheduled into my life, because I might think I'm good. And all of a sudden I'm like, oh, I'm not good. But if it's sort of scheduled ahead of time, I'm like, okay, it's like a checkpoint always that I go to. Yeah. So thank you, Suzanne. Anything coming up at your studio that you want to share with us? Any events or special offerings that are coming up?
Yeah. April 15th, tax day, except it's Saturday. 3-hour pyramid meditation retreat. And that's a focus on abundance. It's only 8 people, and I have these copper pyramids that I set up. I have 8 of them, and then people lie down in them, and it elevates the energy. They do the class there. And then once a month, I have my friend, the Swami, comes down from Elmira, and we do something called Om chanting. And it's usually 25 to 35 people, and they're chanting 45 minutes, but it's done in a particular way, and it's super purifying.
Is that one available online as well, the Om chanting, or no, those are both in person? Yeah. Thank you so much, Suzanne. I'm so glad we figured out the buttons and the technology.
Yeah, thank you for being patient. I really appreciate it. This was fun.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot.
And now we can do it again next time. So, and I wanted to also thank you for supporting us as a studio partner. We can only create the print magazine that we can because of partners like you. So thank you for supporting our work as well. And our next issue will be out in June, and you are a partner, so you will be receiving copies for your community and for your space.
Cool. And I just want to say that I don't go on Instagram that much except to post and hop on, but I do every once in a while see your things, and they're so cute and they're so warm and loving and not pretentious, and you do a really, really good job. Anyway, good to see you.
Thank you so much, Suzanne. It was wonderful chatting with you. I'm going to have a moment of self-love after this. So.